All right. Good evening. Sorry for the delay. Thank you for joining the St. Andrew Health Ministry team in this two-part series on mental health. Our first session will feature Bob Nassar from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI. We're very fortunate and honored to have Bob as our speaker. Bob and his family live in support of their 36-year-old daughter who lives with a diagnosis of schizophrenia. He is a retired management consultant and former board member of the Washtenaw County chapter of NAMI. Bob is an active volunteer with the organization working on several projects. He serves as a state trainer for the NAMI signature programs called Family to Family and Ending the Silence, Parents and Teachers as Allies. We will be taking questions at the end of Bob's talk. If you're joining us on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat box. Please welcome Bob Nassar.
Thank you, Carol. And Carol and whomever is doing the Zoom, if you see a question on the chat, feel free. We'll take questions at any time too. So welcome everybody. My name is Bob Nassar, and I want to introduce Andrew Posner, Andrea May, Robin Batten from the Washtenaw Area Council on Children, and we are very, very pleased to be here this evening. So see if I can advance a slide here. There we go. I'll have to do it by hand. It's going blank. Our mission is threefold. We're okay. Thank you. Good on you. We're the largest grassroots organization in the United States, and our mission is threefold. We provide education classes, support groups, and we do advocacy work. And Andrea, I know you're planning to become a peer-to-peer leader, so thank you very much for that. Very good. And so, like I said, if you take one thing away from our presentation this evening, it is please, 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 if you know somebody who is living and struggling with a mental health challenge, encourage them to take our wonderful, wonderful peer-to-peer class. Likewise, if you or you know of somebody who is living in support of a loved one who lives with a mental health challenge, please consider encouraging them to sign up for our Family to Family 8-week education. Both peer-to-peer and Family to Family are 8-week education classes, and they're life transforming. One of the reasons I'm standing here this evening is because about 15 years ago, I took one of the precursors of the Family class, and I came in totally ignorant about what was happening with my daughter. And it was really, really helpful to me. Everything we do is no cost to you. So everything is free. And our website is NAMI Washtenaw County. I'm not going to take the time to go to the website, but it's NAMIWC.org. This one says NAMI.org, but the NAMI Washtenaw County one is NAMIWC.org. So everything that we do is on our website, and I encourage people to go to it. A couple other things, and I'm going to introduce you in a second, Andrea, that I want to point out to you folks is that our state of Michigan now has a warm line, and that is anyone can call 7 days a week from 10 to 2, and they can have somebody who's trained take that call, and they'll have somebody to talk to. There's also a text number, 741-741, for the Stay Home, Stay Well initiative. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which in July of next year, 2022, is going to morph into go from a 7-digit number to a 3-digit 988. We're very much pleased about that. And then there's just so much now available out on the internet. And we provided Carol with a Google Drive link. And I know she has printed out some of our handouts for us tonight. And there's just lots of information, resources, and handouts on that drive. So please connect with Carol or us if you want more information on resources. So one of the most powerful things that we do as an organization is tell our stories. And so we have two young adult speakers here this evening, and we're going to start out with Andrea. And she is somewhat new to us, although now I'd say you're probably more experienced given that you've told your story many times. And so let's bear witness and let's hear Andrea. Thank you, Andrea. Oops. I guess what I want to do, if you don't mind, is get out of this. So, time out. Good. You want to stand so you can.
There we go. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea May. It's a pleasure meeting you today. This is my story. So I'm sitting in the living room with my little sisters and everything is fine. We're laughing and joking around and it's a great time. And then I think, oh no, this is it. This is the day I'm going to die. This feeling of dread and anxiousness comes across me. I feel like I have to go to the bathroom. I don't know why I feel like I have to go, but I do. My eye is twitching. My hands are sweating. My heart is pounding so loudly, I can't think. I can't breathe. I'm scared. And I feel like this is it. I'm going to die. I've had these feelings since I was about 10 years old. 10 years old is when I had my first panic attack. Here it is, and I'm 32 years old, still suffering with panic attacks. In summer of 2012, I was diagnosed with chronic depression, anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and borderline personality disorder. This is not who I am. I repeat, this is not who I am. This is only my diagnosis. Finding out a diagnosis isn't a sentence. It's something to be proud of because it's like, finally, I know now why I've always felt so sad. I know why I've always felt so different. I know why I've always had this feeling of dread and anxiousness. Today, I want to tell you a story about myself. I struggled a lot with my emotions when I was younger, but nobody paid attention. When I think on my first experience with depression and being suicidal, I remember being about 12 or 13. I was sitting on the floor and I wanted to hurt myself. I was hurting so bad inside. All I could do is cry and cry until tears wouldn't come out anymore. That night, I ended up not self-harming, but later on in life, that habit came back for me. It wasn't until I was an adult that I started having serious symptoms. It actually started when I was in college. I attended Saginaw Valley State University. While in college, I experienced extreme stress from my classes, which triggered my anxiety disorder, the first of many disorders to come. While struggling with many mental health challenges, I also suffer with a learning disability that created even more stress and anxiety. With those two reasons combined, and with everyday life, it caused me to end up dropping out of college. At that point, I went straight into treatment. Over the years, I got help from a few different mental health services. I started with one-on-one therapy at my local community mental health center. A few years later, I decided to try medication, but because of the stigma associated with it, I was terrified. But I felt like if I didn't at least try, things would never get better. I would continue to suffer. And I don't believe anyone should suffer, especially if they don't have to. Trying medications, one-on-one therapy, and different educational and support groups was what worked best for me. It wasn't easy finding a good plan. It takes patience. Everyone is different, but I suggest not giving up until you find the right fit for you. For me, one of the most important things I did was sign up for DBT, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, through Washtenaw County Community Mental Health, and also taking NAMI's 8-week peer-to-peer group. They call them groups, but I call them classes because you learn so much vital information. Like with DBT, we learn mindfulness, distress tolerance, interpersonal effectiveness, and emotional regulation. With peer-to-peer, we have exercises and discussions we do, but what I got out of it the most was the love they've shown me, the support. I'm proud to say I not only completed NAMI's peer-to-peer group, but I also volunteer. From working with NAMI, I see I'm not alone in this. It truly feels like a supportive family. We all get different things from NAMI, but for me, it was the knowledge from the class, the lifelong friendships I've made. From talking to others, I see I'm not alone in this. In peer-to-peer, they even taught me a new skill every class. I remember the second one was a big one. We studied the brain and how it worked hand in hand with mental health. I learned a lot about different diagnoses and even more about mine. This is my story. I wish I had more time to share, but I want you to remember this. You are strong for supporting your loved ones. You are strong for asking for help. You are strong for getting the help that you need. Don't ever be ashamed. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. What I'd like to do now, first, if there are any questions in the chat or anything like that, let us know. I'll just keep forging ahead here, but we're open to questions. And then after I present a little bit, I'll turn it over to Andrew, and then we'll wrap up with some questions. So, and again, Robin Batten from Washtenaw Area Council on Children, you are more than welcome to make any comments and or ask questions. So this is our version of Ending the Silence for parents, for families. Raise your hand if you know of a student or anyone, an adult or a student, who may be struggling with a mental health. Yeah, so these are very common illnesses, and our approach to helping those who are suffering with these challenges is a many hands approach. Living with a mental health challenge can, and especially for students, it can get in the way of being successful in school. And it can get in the way of ultimately having a rich and fulfilling life. So one of our main messages to you folks this evening is that these illnesses are treatable. It is probably the best time in the history of mankind to live with these illnesses because we kind of sort of know what to do now. We still have a long way to go, duly noted, and we still have challenges associated with gaining access to adequate and quality care. But these illnesses can get in the way of a rich life, but the sooner we attend to them, the sooner we get help for our youth, the better. Here are just some of the main statistics associated with students, youth, and mental health. So it ultimately, overall, just say it's about 1 in 5 young people live with a mental health. It's about 20%. For adults, by the way, it is a little bit higher. That's about 25%. So 1 in 4 for adults living with a serious mental health challenge, about 1 in 5. And over in the lower left here, unfortunately, half of our youth who are living with these challenges are currently do not receive treatment. That is unfortunate in that the sooner we can intervene, the better. The statistic is a little out of date. The 17 on the upper right here, that 17% of high school students seriously consider suicide. Right now, Robin, am I correct? Suicidal ideation is possibly the #1 within the pandemic concern for young people. So this is serious, serious business. These symptoms tend to show fairly early in life, and we're getting better and better at identifying early psychosis and ways to intervene earlier. And so about half of students with mental health challenges drop out of school, and that often results in incarceration. Many youth are in the juvenile justice system. One thing about jails and prisons in our society is pretty much everyone agrees they are not the best treatment environment. So we're very proud. NAMI Washtenaw, about 8 or 9 years ago, we advocated and were supportive of bringing a mental health court, a specialty court, to our community, and that has gone extremely, extremely well. Unfortunately, people who die by suicide, over 90% of those folks lived with an underlying mental health challenge. It says here it's the second leading cause for death of people ages 15 to 24. So it is a very, very frightening and serious challenge. By the way, we're going to show a student-made video right now, and the beginning of it is silent intentionally.
I ended the silence.
Studies show that 1 in 5 teens are living with a mental health challenge.
However, mental health symptoms are treatable.
Don't be afraid to take a stand against the stigma.
Speak up or show support.
If we all speak loud enough, we can end the silence for good. Join the conversation and find support at www.reachouthere.com.
Okay. Very good. So I think we're all familiar with the symptom sets, and some of the so-called diagnoses: attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, OCD, obsessive compulsive, bipolar, the so-called big three: depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, eating disorders, et cetera, et cetera. So these are some of the common diagnoses, if you will, that we see with youth. And as I mentioned, the sooner, the better. The whole goal here, people, is to go upstream on these illnesses. We're getting better and better at identifying prodromal or early symptoms. And to me and to others, the so-called holy grail is someday not only curing mental illness, but preventing it. And that's where some of the research in genetics we're a ways away, I think, but it provides a lot of hope for the future. In terms of if you're a parent or somebody, a grandparent, somebody living in support of your loved one who may be dealing with some challenge, may even have a diagnosis, it's really important to, number one, be aware of the warning signs and then do something, reach out and respond. And it may involve, certainly can involve advocating on behalf of your child to the school system, the school staff. And also it's very, very helpful for parents and people living in support of loved ones to be aware of what is available out there. And there's a lot of stuff available. It's amazing though how much little we know what is available. It's out there, but it's not that easy sometimes to find. These next two slides are the sort of ubiquitous common warning signs. These are things for you folks to be aware of with your loved ones. Feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, severe out of control risk-taking behaviors that cause harm to self or others. I know when my daughter was in 8th grade, she experimented a lot with drugs, and some of them were incredibly dangerous. We had no idea. Sudden overwhelming fear. This can be associated with anxiety and a panic attack or whatever, but racing heart. Psychosis, or seeing or believing things that may not be real, that aren't real. And then, we kind of know our children. We know the baseline, if you will. And sometimes there are drastic changes in mood, behavior, personality, sleep. I don't want to go to school. I quit drama class. I quit orchestra. I quit band. Whatever. So there's a lot, we want to just be on the lookout for some of these warning signs. Not being able to sit still or concentrate, grades, taking a dive, intense worries. It's one thing to have some anxiety and nervousness around taking a test, but if it gets maybe to the point where I'm not going to go to school today because I don't want to take that test, or it's something that like that gets in the way of participating, more fully in school, that's something to be concerned. And certainly eating disorder kinds of behaviors. If you notice physically weight loss or weight gain, use of alcohol and drugs, and self-harm. So for example, if one of the, and it's hard to tell, but sometimes, we hear, my loved one went into their room for a little bit, and then they were really tense and upset when they went in, and then they came out and they were much better. That's possibly a cause for concern in terms of self-harm and cutting and whatnot. So these are some of the warning signs. One of the unfortunate common things that happen to people who are different, the other, if you will, is they can be just mercilessly bullied. And that's something to be, Robin in her presentation next time will go into some more detail. So some of the signs of bullying are being listed here in terms of unexplainable injuries, the phone is missing or the iPad is missing, faking illness, etc., declining grades. So, and then also Robin is an expert in this, and she'll go into more detail, but as we all know, social media, it's in the news yet even today, is a huge concern for adults as well as children. It's not just for kids, but we hear things, if parents try to institute, for example, smartphone curfews, it is possible that every high school in America has somebody selling a burner phone out of their locker. Are just like us, our children are pretty resourceful, but the internet and social media and bullying is a huge concern. So in summary, in terms of the warning signs, there's three things here, but the two main things are severity and duration, intensity and duration. So, again, we know the baseline. If it's something that is much more intense than what we normally see, that's cause for concern. If it's lasting, again, you got to use your judgment and common sense over 2 weeks, or for it's not going away, it's not abating. And if it's getting in the way of having success in school, these are, it's time to get some help. Let's talk about suicide. This, as I mentioned, is a very, very serious concern. So if someone is talking or writing or drawing about death, talking a lot about it, indicating a sense of hopelessness or despair, maybe talking about ways of harming or killing themselves, giving away possessions, losing interest, behaving recklessly. Another sign, unfortunately, we just don't know. This is such a complex, and we're still learning about causes of suicide. A long way to go yet in terms of understanding it. But we've even heard that sometimes if there's all of a sudden a sense of peace and calm, that may be an indication too. So mom and dad, be on the lookout. Again, same kind of thing, changes in behavior, driving really fast, in a school zone or something like that. These are some of the things. This is with younger children, but these are some things to be aware of. So use your common sense and judgment, but severity and duration. If you are concerned that a young person is seriously contemplating and may act on taking their life, remember, please remember, it's okay to ask, are you considering hurting yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? The research is indicating that that does not promote suicide. In fact, it helps prevent. And also equally important is don't leave them alone. And so in some situations, for example, if you're with a young person and you have, like your mother is in the nursing home and you have to go help with something, or please don't leave your loved one alone. Find another adult or find somebody who will be with them. It's a good idea to write things down in terms of relevant information, keep a record and keep the facts, so to speak. And then if you're in a situation where it's someone else's child, determine, maybe work with the school or work with community mental health or to determine who contacts the family. And these are just some statements to get the conversation going. I recently, Andrea and Andrew and we are participating in some police academy training, mental health crisis training, and I played in a simulation the role of a dementia patient, which wasn't much of a stretch for me. And during one of the simulations, an emergency medical technician who was with the police in this training session said to me, "Do you like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck?" And I said in the debriefing afterwards, I said, "Where did that come from?" I said, "Oh, I use that all the time. Just get them talking, just get them talking." And so that is the goal here, is here are some questions that you can ask to just kind of, encourage the dialogue and being with them. So, it's really, really important to try to be a non-judgmental listener. So let's look at this video.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Very good. And we've mentioned, our family-to-family 8-week education class and our peer-to-peer 8-week education class. And one of the biggest, I think, benefits of participating in those classes is the non-judgmental, safe, confidential environment that you're in, and you're in with people who will be with you and listen to you. And speaking as a father, that is still a very difficult challenge for me to be non-judgmental and listen and be with and ask questions and focus on the feelings rather than the solutions. So easier to say and sometimes difficult for someone like me to practice. Yes.
How does someone sign up for one of those classes?
Just go on NAMIwc.org. Just go on the internet, and there's a link, and you can just fill out the registration. For support groups, you do need to put in your email so that we can send you the link to the Zoom, because all of our support groups are, is that right, Andrew? They're all still virtual. We eventually hope to go to hybrid. And then for education classes, likewise, you register, and for our education classes, you'll receive a phone call from one of our faculty or our resource coordinator, and just to make sure it's a good fit. So there's a very informal interview process, if you will, just to make sure that the class is the right fit. So thank you. Yeah, that's all I have to do. You can even call our office, 994-6611. It's in the materials, 734-994-6611. And we only have part-time hours. We don't have any full-time employees. We have very few part-time employees. So, but call, and if no one picks up, just leave a message and we'll get back to you. So being with, encourage open communication, and provide information, provide resources. There's a lot out there, and on the Google Drive link that we are have given you, there's just lots and lots of resources and information. And again, encourage, the more discussion, if discussion is the first phase of change, the more we can have people like Andrea and Andrew share their stories and have open dialogue, I think the better off our society will be. So there's lots of resources and support, and encourage your social connection, and that's a real challenge during this pandemic. But reaching out, encouraging your child to reach out and encouraging others to reach out to your child can make a big difference. And having some structure, and yet also you can, what I call structured time, taking a break. That saying, when in panic, when in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. That's pretty good therapy, actually. So, and encourage that connecting and finding something that your child feels good about doing. They don't have to even be good at it, just feel good about doing. And so that can really help get through things. So, and then one of my favorite sayings is, I believe it's Albert Schweitzer, who said, if you think you're going crazy, go cross the street and help somebody. And for so many of us, that is so healing to be able, like we are here with you folks today, to be able to share some of our journey and be with you and try to help us all get through this together. So again, in summary, we have this program, we do this at churches, we do it in schools. Robin, yeah.
Yeah, well, I just had a question for you and Andrea. Andrea, you said you started exhibiting signs at age 10. My question is, how did the adults in your world respond to you when you started to display behavior?
The adults did not notice. They didn't pay attention to it. So yeah, my mom, she kind of just brushed it off. We moved a lot because my mom just moved us, and she was a musician, and my stepdad was a musician. So we moved a lot, and I would get so anxious going to new schools, and she kind of just thought it was normal.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering if they treated more like a behavior problem, like they were discipline you for.
Not for me. I think the way my symptoms presented, it wasn't, and I never really acted out, as they say. I more so was like quiet, and they kind of just let me do my own thing in that way.
And so the flip side is Bob raising a child.
I was the father who was buck up, snap out of it.
Okay.
You bet. I was like, what? I had no idea. I didn't know this was a prodromal symptom of schizophrenia. I didn't know. I didn't even know what schizophrenia was really at that. The way I understand it a little bit better. I don't know if I ever understand it, but it is, and it's very challenging, as we know. My daughter was co-valedictorian of our high school class. We had high hopes for our child, and these illnesses are so-called equal opportunity illnesses, and for parents, it's a very, very difficult road to come to go through the grieving and the acceptance of the sense that, well, my child might not, have such a happy life as what we hope. But that doesn't mean, again, with treatment and with support and parents and family and friends who care and are there, it makes a big difference.
One more question.
Yeah, sure.
Was it hard to get to that point where you said we need to get help? And I'm just asking because I'm thinking about parents and how they respond to their children, and they kind of like buck up, snap out of it. There's nothing wrong with you. Punish them, maybe spank them in order to control the behavior. So to get to that point is saying, okay, something is wrong with my child. I need to get help for this. Like, what was that for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say initial, the emotional response initially is denial. And I know we did go to family therapy. The assumption was this is there's a lot of blaming and shaming going around. And this is quite 20 years ago now. But I think my journey may have started when a therapist said to me in an accusing tone, "Did you abuse her?" Oh. Yeah, and I just like, what, and in those days, there's such a thing as called a schizophrenic mother, and so the mom was blamed, and I think I'd like to think that we're beyond that, and my personal experience, everyone has a different experience, but my personal experience with the community mental health, which is we've been very blessed to have a good experience with community mental health and hospitals and whatnot, is they are not as much, no longer, hopefully, treating parents as suspicious outsiders. And the best treatment providers, in my opinion, are the ones who are treating the whole family. When one member of your family is ill, your whole family is ill. And looking at it, in the context, they're good parents, there's not so good parents, but they're listening to us. And there's a lot more trust, and that is so helpful to our loved one. Yeah, thank you, Robin. Yeah. All right, one last video, and we'll turn it over to you, Andrew.
You are my friend. You are not a mental illness, because you cannot be defined by that, just as I cannot be defined by my race, gender, or sexuality. You can be defined by your strength, both literally and figuratively, and by your amazing sense of humor. You always know how to put a smile on my face. You can also be defined by your passion for music. There are endless definitions to who you are. Unfortunately, there are some people who would rather define us by what makes us different than them. However, you are more similar to me than many of those people are. I stand up for you because you deserve a lot better than you often endure. You are not your mental illness because that could have happened to anyone. You are uniquely you because of your character.
Okay, thank you. All right, I would now would like to introduce Andrew Posner. He is, as you're about to witness, an incredible person, and he has been volunteering with us now for at least a couple of years, I believe, a support group leader, and going to become peer-to-peer leader, and just being around Andrea and Andrew is just truly one of the greatest joys and healing parts of my life, to know you and to be able to bear witness to your story.
Thank you, Bob. I do the whole glasses and mask ritual. Hey everyone, so I'm Andrew. I am 28 years old, and I'm on my way to becoming a social worker and a meditation teacher. I'm also passionate about helping people with different perspectives and experiences understand each other. I spend about half my free time watching videos of cute animals, and I also have a very new nephew who I'm going to meet for the first time in a week, so I'm really looking forward to that. I've also, for most of my life, been a musician, and as enriching and fulfilling as music was for me when I was growing up, as I improved, I started to feel more and more that pressure of perfectionism, always trying to be the best. It's a very competitive world. And so when I was 16, I experienced a series of severe panic attacks while performing in front of hundreds of people. My entire body would shake, my head would feel like it was on fire, and I couldn't keep playing or really even think. Imagine it was probably kind of close to what having a heart attack feels like, and a few times I almost fainted. These traumatic events led to intense anxiety that would arise in almost every social situation. when I would tell other people about these experiences, I'd sometimes hear back things like, "Oh, you're just shy." But it was really so much more than that. I was constantly afraid of making any kind of mistake and being judged by other people. And I really couldn't open up about my inner life and be vulnerable with even my few friends. So if you can imagine your heart racing as you call a restaurant to order takeout, or staying completely quiet at a group dinner because you're afraid of saying the wrong things, or skipping a class that you actually like because you're convinced the teacher is going to shame you for being just a couple minutes late. This can be some of what social anxiety disorder feels like, constantly feeling trapped by what you believe other people will think about you. And actual public speaking, I would do anything to get out of it. I went to college to become a composer, which does involve a good amount of socializing and networking and public appearances. And so my diagnosis also really limited my career path. There were some days when I would think myself into a panic attack while just sitting in my apartment by imagining the terrible things that other people were going to say about my work and my words. 6 years passed before I started seeking help because I was convinced that everyone else would see me as somehow weak for feeling that distressed by the simplest interactions. So it really wasn't until I had started to accept and become friends with my own mind, just the way it had come to be, that it felt comfortable enough to start looking for help. The more I considered the beliefs and the events that created the social anxiety, the more it just seemed like some natural process that was rolling along. And so blaming myself stopped making sense. And the moments of occasional self-compassion that I would feel for all the pain and isolation I had been through were really healing. Social anxiety started to seem less personal, so not something that was, wrong with me in an essential way, but just something that happened. Gradually, I did open up for support. My parents are great in most of the important ways, but their beliefs had accidentally encouraged the perfectionism that created the anxiety in the first place, so I didn't feel comfortable talking to them in the beginning. But by my early 20s, I had a couple friends and a girlfriend from college, and they became my network of trust. It was scary opening up to them about what I went through in social situations at first, but once I was willing to take that leap and share this really private stuff with them, they were just so accepting and supportive. And since I genuinely enjoyed spending time with these people, they convinced me to start coming out of my shell just a little bit. So they would kind of drag me to small social events to give me some evidence that it wouldn't actually kill me. It also just felt really good to know that I had told a few people, and there were other people who were looking out for me and couldn't understand what I was going through. So I really don't think I'd be doing as well as I am today if it weren't for those friends. This all created a kind of positive chain reaction that helped me speak about social anxiety more and more. So to other friends and teachers, and eventually my family. I was usually surprised at how well almost everyone could relate to what I was going through. Part of the lie that social anxiety tells you is that you are alone, even in your experience of social anxiety. No one else must be able to relate to this. But actually, even if it's not as intense or constant for most people, almost everyone can know what it feels like to feel awkward and insecure around other people. It's totally natural, and it's just really easy to believe that that isn't true for you when it's so intense and everyone else seems to be not as impaired by it. So I do wish I had opened up about this a lot earlier, so maybe I wouldn't have felt so isolated for so long. So finally, I found a doctor who worked with me to find a medication that I could take before public events to let me get through them, okay? That medication was really, really helpful in the short term, but I haven't needed it for many years now. I also developed some healthy habits, the same ones we've all heard all our lives, like sleeping 7 or 8 hours a night if you can, and eating more healthily and exercising. That helped stabilize my mood, so I would go into social situations not already activated, and that allowed me to learn more and be more reflective. So that was key. And then last, I found a therapist who trained me in the 3 treatment methods that have been very successful. So I'll just give you a summary of those. First is cognitive behavioral therapy. So in a nutshell, that's training yourself to notice and then not believe the kinds of thoughts that trigger anxiety and depression. Second, and for me, this really was the key, is mindfulness meditation. That's recognizing our present moment experiences in a way that's both calming and helpful for learning about our mental habits. And then last, exposure therapy, which is voluntarily putting yourself in potentially stressful and triggering situations so you can practice being more comfortable and less afraid when they come up in the future. It's a little of what this is right now, although I'm completely calm. So everyone's treatment path works differently, but that's what worked for me. So now after many years of practice and inner work, when social anxiety comes up in me, I don't feel pushed around by it. It's now something that I can experience and be with rather than something I have to fight against. That makes a big difference. And by now I know really well that the fear of an experience always feels worse than the experience itself. I do notice the difference between when I have been keeping up with my treatment plan and when I haven't. So for me, recovery is an ongoing process. Lots of days I still want to be a hermit, but now I'm a happy hermit. I do sometimes notice my body reacting in its habitual ways in public situations, like feeling too warm or my heart racing or trembling, but almost always my mind is calm and able to get through it without any issues. And if I do get overwhelmed, it really doesn't take that long for me to accept what happened and move on. Success and recovery for me boil down to courage. At first, it was the courage to hope for a better way of life for myself and the courage to ask for help. Nowadays, sometimes it's the courage to get out of bed in the morning when I know I'm going to have to be in public a lot. Some days it's the courage to have that difficult conversation with a family member or a coworker or a partner. But really every day, it's the courage to be more accepting and understanding of myself and trusting that it's okay to relax and to make mistakes and to be just complicated and messy human being in a complicated and messy world. I mentioned at the beginning that I'm on my way to becoming a social worker and a meditation teacher. If a friend 10 years ago told me that my professional calling would literally be talking to people all day, I would have asked if they needed help. But I'm going for it, and I've never felt better or more whole, even when it's frightening. I also, as Bob mentioned, I facilitate a support group for young adults with mental health challenges, and I also give these presentations to help provide some education about social anxiety. And these are some of the most rewarding things I've ever done. It would have been completely unthinkable for me just a few years ago. So what I would like you to remember is that being diagnosed with a mental health condition is not the end of someone's hopes and dreams. It's just the beginning. It is possible to recover and feel happier and more balanced. That journey to wellness might be difficult, but every step in the right direction is worth the effort. And that's because no matter your diagnosis or your friend's diagnosis or your family members, and no matter how horrible things might seem right now, there is always hope. Thank you so much for your anxiety-creating attention.
Okay, that's pretty much our presentation for this evening. We appreciate your having us here, Carol. Thank you for your support. And one thing I wanted to mention, because you triggered it with the support group, Andrew, we also have a support group for parents with children with suicidal ideation. So that go to our website and you can, if you're interested in joining that support group, it meets, I believe, once a month on a Monday evening. And they may have actually now gone to twice a month. I can't remember, but go ahead and go to our website and check that out if you want to, if you're interested in participating in that parent support group. It's been a well attended and going strong. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bob, Andrea, and Andrew. Thank you for your presentations. They really touched my heart. It's just a blessing and such a coincidence that Andrea and Andrew are here at St. Andrews. I mean, what are the odds? Anyway, so please join us next week when we have Robin Batten. Robin is in our audience tonight. She is from the Washtenaw Council for Children, and she will be talking about wellness and resiliency for children. So thank you and good night.